The bells of the convent tolled for the last time. High in the hills of Thessaly, olive trees bent under the autumn wind while a thin mist gathered over the valley. Within the fading chapel of St. Agnes of Lyssa, a handful of nuns knelt before cracked frescoes whose painted saints had long lost their faces to age and smoke. The old bronze bell echoed across the mountain, its tones swallowed by distance. Below, faint plumes of fire flickered on the horizon, Ottoman banners advancing like blood-red ghosts through the hills. The sisters prayed, voices trembling yet steady, knowing no soldiers would come, no riders from the nearby towns, only the stillness before conquest. Their abbess, Sister Eleni of Lyssa, stood before the altar clutching a silver crucifix that had weathered a century of storms. "If they breach our walls," she whispered, "keep your vows inside your hearts, that they cannot take." By dusk the hills glowed red. Fire moved like a tide, and with it the empire. The Ottoman vanguard carried torches and small field guns, their banners fluttering with crescents that caught the last light of day. The convent walls, built for solitude not war, cracked beneath the first cannon blast. Stones tumbled like thunder. The hymns within were drowned in the clash of iron. The Ottomans did not waste arrows on holy places. They used fire, the same fire that consumed fields and memory alike. The sisters hid their relics beneath the chapel floor. A silver chalice, a faded icon, fragments of saints' bones wrapped in cloth. They believed that if their bodies were lost, their faith might still endure. By nightfall the gates were gone. Soldiers poured into the courtyard. Torches cast gold and shadow across the white habits of the sisters. They were rounded up amid shouts in foreign tongues, their chapel now a ruin of smoke and stone. The abbess stepped forward, cross in hand. The Ottoman captain offered mercy if she would renounce her god and accept the sultan's faith. Eleni's answer was quiet but unyielding. "I have already given my life. What else can you take?" The captain turned away. Mercy ended there. What followed was never fully recorded. Only fragments survive in missionary letters and Ottoman ledgers. Discipline for those who refused reason. By dawn, the convent lay in ashes, its bell melted for coin, its cross shipped east as a trophy. From the ruins, 22 women were herded onto the road. They were not prisoners of war but trophies of conquest, proof that even sanctity could fall. Bound at the wrists, they marched south toward the port of Volos. The sun beat down mercilessly. The air smelled of salt and burnt fields. The sisters, who had never stepped beyond their cloister, stumbled barefoot across the stones. When one fell, another lifted her veil to shield her face from the dust. A final gesture of dignity in a world stripped of mercy. "If you cannot hold the cross," Eleni's last words echoed among them, "hold each other." After 7 days they reached the sea. Waiting in the harbor were Ottoman galleys, built not for comfort but for control, or decks where criminals and captives once toiled. The women were shackled to benches as the sails caught the Aegean wind. Greece faded into a blue haze behind them. Before them stretched only water and silence. The overseer, Yusuf Aga, kept meticulous records: cargo, textiles, coins, spices, and 22 religious captives. Centuries later, that ledger would resurface in the archives of Istanbul, confirming a story long dismissed as legend. 12 days at sea broke even the strongest. Storms lashed the deck. Salt stung their wounds. Hunger hollowed their faces until they seemed carved from wax. Yet it was not pain that silenced them, it was isolation. No word was spoken except the orders of guards. At night, the youngest, Sister Magdalena, whispered psalms barely audible above the waves. Her fragile voice drew the attention of other prisoners, Greeks, Serbs, Italians, all listening in the dark. For a moment, the sea seemed to still, the wind pausing to hear one faint prayer. When dawn broke over the Bosphorus, the skyline of Constantinople rose ahead, domes and minarets glowing like blades in the morning light. The sisters were paraded through the harbor streets, past spice markets and marble fountains. Locals paused to stare. Christian nuns among captives were a rare sight even in an empire of conquest. They were led toward the imperial district, through the shadow of Hagia Sophia, once the heart of Christendom, now crowned with crescents. One sister whispered, "We are home, but it is no longer ours." Before the imperial council they stood, heads lowered beneath vaulted ceilings of marble. The Grand Vizier presided from a gilded seat, flanked by scribes with parchment and ink. The Sultan's decree was simple. Those who accepted conversion would live. Those who refused would face the discipline of faith. None spoke. Sister Daria, the eldest, stepped forward. "My lord," she said through the interpreter, "you may rename us, but you cannot rewrite the prayers we carry." The vizier's expression did not change. "Prayers fade when tongues forget how to speak them," he replied. With a gesture, he consigned them not to death, but to the lower chambers of Topkapı Palace. Beneath the palace gardens stretched a labyrinth of stone. The sisters were stripped of their habits, clothed in coarse garments, and assigned to cleaning, sewing, and stoking fires. It was meant to erase identity, to turn holiness into servitude. Yet the Ottomans underestimated them. These women had already sworn lives of silence and sacrifice. Hardship was familiar ground. At night they prayed in secret. One carved a cross into the clay with her fingernail. Another traced verses in dust. They began to count days by the rhythm of the muezzin's call, not out of conversion, but as a clock of endurance. Servants whispered of the silent women beneath the palace. Ghosts who never spoke, never begged. Weeks became months. Hunger, cold, and darkness pressed close. Then came the second test. Kindness. Food, oil, and silks were sent to their quarters. Scholars arrived speaking gently. "Your God and ours are not enemies." Conversion was offered as freedom, but they all knew what freedom meant. Forgetting. Sister Magdalena, once timid, now gathered the others in whispers of scripture. "Even incomplete, the word endures," she said. When persuasion failed, rations were halved, torches doused. One by one, they were taken to small rooms where scribes waited. Those who spoke the words of submission vanished into the palace above. 2 sisters from Corfu yielded. They were dressed in silk and never seen again. The rest fell silent by choice. When asked their names, they answered with stillness. "Call me Silence," said Sister Daria. In the empire's records they became a footnote. Foreign captives, unproductive. To history they became something greater, living proof that faith could survive where walls could not. By spring, only 11 remained. Guards called them ghosts in rags. Servants whispered of strange sounds at night, faint Latin hymns rising from beneath the marble. The sisters had discovered a sealed archway hidden behind a collapsed wall. Within was a small chamber, stone-lined and airless. They cleared it with their bare hands and made it a chapel. A broken pot served as a candle holder. A scrap of linen became the altar cloth. From a shard of mirror they fashioned a crude cross. Each night after the palace slept, they gathered there in whispering prayer. In time, their secret spread through rumor. A Venetian prisoner claimed he heard women singing in Latin beneath the harem floors. Scholars later dismissed it as myth, until excavators centuries later found a chamber carved with Christian symbols under Topkapi. On one wall, a Latin phrase still legible through soot. "Lux in tenebris lucet." The light shines in the darkness. Their history and faith met in silence. Within that hidden chapel, Sister Magdalena began marking the walls with charcoal. A bird for each sister still alive, a flame for each lost. As months passed, fewer birds appeared. The guards noticed the calm in their captives and called it madness. The scribes recorded it differently. They possess a strength not of this world. Their defiance was wordless, their worship invisible. When new rulers took power, the palace records listed them simply as disposed, unfit for service. No dates, no burials, just a blank space where names should be. That emptiness became their monument. Centuries later, the story resurfaced piece by piece. An Ottoman courtier's diary in Bursa spoke of foreign women who refused to bow and vanished beneath the palace. A Venetian spy letter from 1484 mentioned nuns who would not kneel before the Sultan. Together, these fragments told what official history would not. the deliberate erasure of women whose faith defied an empire. A French diplomat visiting in 1712 wrote of a forbidden legend still whispered among servants, Christian women who sang themselves into heaven. He dismissed it as superstition. Yet the walls had already told the truth. Today, beneath the ruins of Topkapı Palace, archaeologists still find faint carvings, crosses, initials, and that same Latin phrase, lux in tenebris lucet. Their chapel lies in fragments, but the message endures. Light shines in darkness. The women who vanished into history left no graves, only whispers carved in stone. In their silence, they still speak, a reminder that some truths survive not through power, but through persistence. The empire believed it had buried them, but faith, like stone, remembers. If you've heard their story tonight, let it stay with you, because some truths deserve to be remembered, no matter how much the world tries to forget.